In this video, we're going to learn about our fourth and final food group, storage. So we've already learned about CPU, memory, and network. And the fourth food group that my VM needs is storage. And we want to bear in mind as we're working our way through these four food groups that this guest operating system has no idea that it's running within a virtual machine. This VM has no dedicated physical hardware. And that includes a disk. Right? The virtual machine doesn't have a physical disk that's dedicated to it. So much like we saw with networking we had a virtual NIC. With storage virtualization, we're going to have a virtual SCSI controller. And if we think about the way that a physical server works with internal hard drives, when the operating system needs to write some sort of data to disk, the operating system generates a SCSI command. If it needs to read data from disk, it generates a SCSI command, and it sends that command to the SCSI controller, which interfaces with those physical disks. That's the way that Windows is used to working. And guess what? Windows doesn't know that it's running within a virtual machine here, so we need to maintain that illusion. So what we're going to do is provide Windows with a virtual SCSI controller. We're going to make it feel just like it used to feel when the virtual machine was connected to local physical disks. So when Windows needs to carry out some sort of storage command, it's going to think, I've got a SCSI controller. Let me send that storage command to the SCSI controller. And what happens after the fact is the virtual SCSI controller is actually a virtual device. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking those storage commands and you're giving them to the hypervisor. The virtual machine is sending those storage commands through its virtual SCSI controller, and they are arriving at the hypervisor. And now the hypervisor determines what happens to those storage commands from here. If this virtual machine has its VMDK, or virtual disk file, on a local disk, it'll simply send those storage commands to that file on a local disk. Or maybe we're using a storage array. It could be a fiber channel storage array. It could be an Ethernet-based iSCSI storage array. It could be fiber channel over Ethernet. It really doesn't matter. They all sort of work the same way. What's really different is the network. So maybe the hypervisor will send that storage command to, let's say it's a fiber channel. HBA is my storage connection. And that storage command will traverse that fiber channel network till it eventually arrives at the virtual disk. And you can see I've named some of the files here for that virtual machine. I've named them according to what they would be named in VMware, but the concepts remain the same regardless of the hypervisor. Your virtual machine is going to have a virtual disk, and so that's how the SCSI commands get from your virtual machine to your virtual machine's virtual disk, regardless of where that virtual disk is located. So let's watch our SCSI command. As the Windows virtual machine generates a SCSI command, it sends it to the virtual SCSI controller. The hypervisor determines the appropriate location for that virtual disk, sends it out the storage adapter, and the storage command arrives at the data store. And the changes are actually written to the file that contains the virtual machine's virtual disk. Now, one other important concept that I want to talk about here. One of the big benefits of virtualization is mobility, and we'll get to that as we get further into this course, what I mean by mobility. But just think about a scenario here where we have, down here at the bottom, we'll call this a fiber channel storage array. And maybe I've just invested in a new iSCSI storage array. Right? And please excuse the crudity of my little diagram here, but I want to use it to illustrate a point. Right up here I've got an iSCSI storage array. Down at the bottom I've got a fiber channel storage array. And maybe I want to take this virtual machine and all of its files and relocate those files to my ESXI storage device, which is on a different network. It's on an Ethernet network. Well, I can do that, right? And the reason I can do that is because of my hypervisor layer here. So as the SCSI commands come out of my virtual machine, they are received by the hypervisor. It's going to then take those storage commands and do whatever it needs to do with them, right? So if I've got some other storage adapter here connecting to ESXI, and I relocate this VM's files to that other storage array, the hypervisor is aware that I've made that change, and it simply redirects those storage commands to the new location. And you can even do this without any downtime on your virtual machine. So storage virtualization gives us some pretty awesome capabilities. One other capability that I want to mention, I want to throw one more scenario out here. Let's say that we have multiple ESXI hosts, and I now choose to take this Windows VM and relocate the live state of the VM to another host. Well, that's going to work out just fine too, as long as this other host has the ability to connect to this shared storage. My virtual machine will still be able to access its virtual disk and all of the other critical VM files that it needs. So this is how storage virtualization and shared storage help us to achieve mobility. We can take virtual machines, move them to different hosts. We can move their files from one storage system to another without any downtime. And it's all due to the fact that we have this hypervisor in the middle, interposing itself between the virtual machine and the hardware. This is where we really start to see what people call decoupling. The decoupling aspect means the virtual machine doesn't have a direct relationship with any hardware. I can move it from one physical server to another. I can move it from one storage system to another. There's not this tight relationship between virtual machine and specific hardware. They're decoupled. And as we move a little bit deeper into the course, we'll take a closer look at some of those mobility benefits.